በጣም got it. Okay. ባለፈው ወር ላይ ፓስተር ግሬግ ሲያስተምር ግሎባላይዜሽንን በተመለከተ ተናግሮ ነበር። በዛ ቶፒክ ላይ ኖት ደርሷችሁ ይመስለኛል እና ካላችሁና ጥያቄ ያላችሁ ከሆነ ዛሬ በዛ ቶፒክ ላይ በዛ ርዕስ ላይ ያላችሁን ማንኛውንም ጥያቄ ልንጠይቁት ይፈልጋል። ዲስካስ ማድረግ የሚፈልገው ግሎባላይዜሽንን በተመለከተ ነውና ጥያቄ ካላችሁ እኔ ጥያቄ ፕሊዝ በአማርኛም ብትፈልጉም በእንግሊዝኛ መጠየቅ ትችላላችሁ። አስፈላጊ ከሆነ ሙሉጌታና እኔ አድሬስ እናደርገዋለን እሱ ይመልስላችኋል። Anybody?
Make sure that unmute there.
Okay. Every one of them are unmute except Mulugeta. Mulugeta just unmuted.
Right, Mulugeta, tell the fellows with you, they look like they're saying something, but I can't hear them because they need to unmute.
Mulugeta, unmute yourself.
There he goes, he's getting it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
And we are aware of that, and most of our young people are also here. It's free for them to talk and to ask, whether in English or in Amharic. It's ready. They are here, and some are listening from background. Some are still struggling with the internet problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll record as usual, but so we're just wondering how to direct the discussion based on the problems or the struggles that you see in youth ministry. So
Yes.
today I did not prepare something specific because I wanted to hear how to direct teaching based on your needs.
It's clear, Pastor Greg.
Good.
So it's open. It's open for everybody. I have already distributed the video for those who were able to join us, even for those who were not able to join us. I have already distributed maybe between 45 to 50 young people.
Yes. I
but
saw
I got-
that I saw that in the video had been viewed 66 times. So that was helpful that people are watching it. So that's good.
So the feedback I got is they liked it. Even we have a common friend in America, Brahanu knows her, Adena. Even I shared for her, and she said that this is excellent, and she enjoyed it. And those leaders who listen to my connection to the brethren churches, even in Kenya, Uganda, they are very much interested. Some of them, even I have invited them to join us today.
Right.
Unfortunately, yeah, so we all liked it. And if there is any question, we have a couple of number of people here, youth leaders, and I think it's good to give them time to ask questions.
So which questions about youth ministry do you need help with?
እዚህ ያላችሁ አብዛኛዎቹ
About addiction.
Go ahead, Ayantu. Go ahead.
I'm saying like I want to hear from you about addiction. Here in Ethiopia, most of our young friends are addicted in many things. Maybe I hear about that.
Okay. So probably as you I find that one of the the most important things to understand about addiction is helping people to understand that we all have it's easy for all of us to have addictions. We look at the worst kind of addictions, like addictions to drugs or addiction to drinking alcohol, addiction to looking at pornography on the internet. We look at those addictions and those stand out as really bad. Sometimes we fail to understand that we all have little addictions. Maybe it's to gossip. Maybe the addiction is to watching television all the time. Maybe an addiction to, I know on YouTube, they have 2-minute videos. And I thought those were really stupid until I clicked on one, and then I started clicking another one and another one and another one. And so to understand addiction, first and foremost, we need to make sure that whoever we're talking and when we're talking about it, we help people to understand that this is something that we can all struggle with. And next, we need to understand that addiction happens usually because we're trying to feel good. And the reason why we want to feel good is because we feel bad. So I know people who easily get addicted to an alcohol or drug, but it's because they feel bad about a situation that they're dealing with, and it's causing them anxiety. So the addiction is to help them to feel better. So then the next step is to help them to understand that to ask people, is what you're addicted to solving your problem? Is this meeting your need? So most things that we are addicted to bring only temporary solutions. So we've identified that everybody struggles, and then secondly, that the things that we are addicted to don't bring us the happiness and the joy that we're hoping for. It might help in the moment, but it doesn't help for the long term. Then once you go through those two things, then it opens the door to talk about how the relationship with Jesus makes a difference. When we talk about our relationship with Jesus, we need to first come from how God is changing our lives. So you can talk about lots of verses from the Bible, but a person who has an addiction is that person is always going to struggle just hearing words from the Bible. They need to see lives changed by the Bible. So you want to talk about how God is changing your life and share your testimony about how God fills the need that they are trying to fulfill through a false method, like drinking alcohol or looking at pornography, things that we get addicted to. That coming out of addiction, the problem is our brain put out chemicals that make us feel good when we do things. So that's why people get addicted, because whatever they get addicted to makes them feel good for the moment. And usually it's our brain that is putting out chemicals like endorphins or other chemicals that make us feel good. So we have to recognize that the science behind it as well. And there's lots of lots of information available about that. But what I did is I steps of 4 steps there. One is to help a person feel like they're not the alone and the horrible person and they're the only one struggling. And then we talked about bringing them toward a relationship with Jesus. What did I just say that helped you to think about addiction, and what give me a specific struggle maybe that you're trying to work with?
Again, to
Oh, unmute.
unmute curiosity.
Sorry. Tell me again, please.
So Yantu, you need to unmute so we can hear you. There you go.
No, I don't have like that one. Just I want to hear about the addiction because in my country, in the church, most of our young friends, they are addicted in alcohol, in cigarette and other things. So they are not active in many things like in church, also in the school. So that's very dangerous in our community. So I want to hear this one.
Right. So it is really hard because young people, again, it comes back to just wanting to feel happy and to feel like you're having fun. So it's all about feelings, but then what is the heart need behind those feelings? And so kind of if we focus on the surface problem like alcohol, we're not getting to the heart problem. And so we need to get to the heart problem where people are really struggling. So if their struggle is loneliness, is their struggle anxiety, is their struggle what are they trying to if they're looking at themselves, what are they trying to feel good about? And then take the gospel and approach that, not the addiction. Focus on the heart need that's causing the addiction, and talk about our heart needs. And then there's lots of helps that you can find like on YouTube and various channels like that can help you to once they really understand their heart issue and how the gospel applies to it, then they struggling to solve it, you're going to find lots of help online. I see that somebody has typed a message in the message box about what about sexual purity and successful life. Let me talk about sexual purity real quick. For us, this is I think the biggest issue for us with sexual purity is pornography by far, and the easy access to it on the internet. So in the United States, we are not having any connection issues and so kids can access it very easily, and parents are not helping their kids with how not to access it. They're not using anything on their they're not using any of the helps about parent security on phones or on computers. So kids are getting access to that, and then that's causing some problems, obviously, including addiction. But sexual purity always comes back to, I think, helping the young people to see a vision for the future. So it's one thing to say, yes, I'm a follower of Jesus. Yes, I want to get married. but why can't I just have fun in the moment? And so what happens is again, brain chemistry. If two people put themselves in a situation where I guess an illustration would be if you have a fire in a fire pit, and there are lots of things around it that can catch on fire. If that fire sparks outside of that, it can cause a lot of damage. So with sexual purity, when we keep it where it's supposed to be, then it's a beautiful thing. We can sit and watch the fire. But if it is not managed, then it can burn the whole village down, or burn the whole house down. And so helping the kids to see that the immediate pleasure doesn't help them for their long-term pleasure is difficult, because kids only think in the moment, and adults are the same way. This is another thing similar to the addiction. We want to look at why are they pressing toward something that is not healthy. Sometimes they don't have the right information. Sometimes they feel lonely. They want to feel something, and then they don't have the correct information to move the other direction. So sexual purity is a hard thing, no matter what country you're in, no matter where you are in the world. So the best thing I think to do is for groups of young people who are committed to sexual purity to hold each other accountable, and to circle up and to make sure that they're asking each other how they're doing. Successful life is another question. Boy, that's kind of an open topic. That one's a hard one. Because it's not narrow enough. To ask me more questions based on the things that I just said, or to help me to know more specifically the situations that you're trying to do.
Pastor Greg.
Yes.
Now,
So Mulugeta,
Smoking has become a big problem for community, including the church.
so Mulugeta, pause for a second. You need to mute one of the microphones near you. Just keep one open. Because your voice is actually, there you go. Now say,
Can you hear me now?
yes, I can, but you're echoing through the other microphone in the computer.
the computer is not working.
Okay. So after,
Hello?
yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, my question is nowadays, smoking cigarettes, and I don't know if you know, chewing tobacco, there is something.
So you mentioned smoking cigarettes, is that what you said?
Smoking cigarette, chewing charts in our country. When we come to mass media, social media, Facebook, Telegram, has really starting to control the families, even in the churches. Even in the church, young people are tempted to go to their social media, even in the church. This kind of things are becoming a big challenge nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is difficult because this type of format is difficult because it doesn't give me a chance to think in advance, and I don't want to come across like I have all the answers when we know that that scripture gives us what we need. So whether we're dealing with social media or smoking cigarettes or the influences of mass media, the main important thing that we need to do is make sure that we're not focusing in on the symptoms, but in on the disease. And so the symptoms are that we are distracted by the world. The world draws us in, and the disease is our sin nature. And so that our sin nature is going to be attracted to the things of the world. This, if you know the word default setting for a computer, our sin nature is our default setting. We're going to have naturally desire the things of the world, and these are going to draw us away from the more important things. We also know that besides our sin nature, that we also have spiritual warfare. And in the book of Ephesians, we have that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and evil forces arrayed against us. So we have our sin nature, we have spiritual warfare that is distracting us and taking us away from the most important thing. And then we have the gospel that in this setting against that. So we can get as Christians, we can get very upset with kids, young people who are distracted by social media, who are listening and being attracted to other worldviews, and are doing things that feel good or look like smoking cigarettes. And we understand that sin is the problem, the world is the problem. So we have to challenge the young people. What is their identity? Are they going to identify with the world, or are they going to identify with Christ? So identity in Christ is ultimately what we need to keep challenging the people. So why do we go to the internet? Why do we go to social media? Why do we smoke cigarettes? It's because we're looking for hope in the wrong place. We're looking for meaning, we're looking for significance, we're looking for the value of who we are in the wrong place. So then we start to work into our testimony. Like, this is who I am, this is why I follow Christ, and this is what difference it makes. So over and over again, I have seen the church over years of ministry obsess about the symptoms without talking about the disease. And so that gives all it does is it becomes something that's about legalism, and the next generation thinks that following Jesus means just making rules and following rules. And following Jesus means being a good person, and being a good person has to do with whether I'm following the rules or not. But this is all surface. This is all surface stuff. It's not talking about the heart and addressing the disease of sin. So for example, do we want, if you are talking to a non-Christian who is addicted, who is maybe living with their girlfriend or boyfriend, and you're trying to bring them to Christ, how do you bring that person to Christ? Maybe a person who has same-sex attraction and they are participating in a homosexual relationship. How do you bring them to Christ? Do you approach them and say, you must stop sinning, you must stop this bad behavior, stop sinning, you need Jesus, and if you keep sinning, you're going to go to hell? Well, these are all good, true things, but we're not bringing that person to Christ, and they can't bring themselves to Christ. They can't save themselves from sin. So instead of dealing or pointing our finger at the issue that we see, we want to talk about our deepest heart needs, and then bring them to Christ through the gospel by talking about our deepest needs here in our heart. Then let Christ help them with their addiction. Let Christ help them with their identity. Let them slowly build their identity until they realize that I'm a Christian, I'm not a smoker. I'm a Christian, I'm not somebody who pursues sexual impurity. So now we've addressed the identity issue. But as long as we're pointing fingers at the surface, we're never going to we're never going to help them to know that Christ is the one who changes hearts. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, Yantu.
Thank you very much.
So this is the hardest thing in ministry, but it's also the hardest thing is to focus on the heart instead of on the sin, because even with parents, if you're talking to parents about their kids, their number one thing that they go to is the behavior. And they go to a person's behavior because this is the thing that they see, and the bad behavior causes problems and it's hurting relationships. So this is what I call the felt need. So as ministers of the gospel, as men and women who are trying to reach people for Christ, our felt need is to help people to solve the surface problems. We feel like that the behavior is the problem when the heart is the real problem. So if we look past the behavior, not to say that behavior is okay, but that a person is loved, and that you love them, then you are meeting their deeper need. So let's be careful about not obsessing about behavior when we need to impact the deeper heart need. All right, so we got any other questions out there?
I have one question.
Yes.
My question is, nowadays, technology is helping the society, simplifying many things in the globe. And nowadays, the technology sometimes brings and creates different kinds of problems according to around our users. And users are nowadays using technology, losing their time by losing their time by technologies. And instead of reading the Bible, instead of going to church, instead of praying, they are creating. This creates many problems, and this brings gaps between the users and the church elders and the church today. So how are you overcoming such kind of problems? I think it is not the problem, only the problem of Ethiopia. It is the problem of the world. And so how are you overcoming, or how are you trying to solve such kind of problems?
All right, so
Did you get me?
yes, I heard all of that, and I was writing down some notes as you were speaking. So one thing that technology, the thing about technology is that it doesn't create problems, it amplifies problems that were already there. So if a person looks at their phone in the middle of church, and because somebody messaged them on social media, and they're answering this message in the middle of church when they are worshiping God, the phone is only showing a problem that is already there. Maybe to help us to understand this, to go away from the phone for a minute, or technology, and talk about COVID, and how COVID affected our churches in America. We went online for church because meeting together was prohibited by law, and then people got out of the habit of going to church, and we've struggled with some attendance from some people. So do we say that COVID caused this problem, and that if COVID never happened, then we would not have the problem? Or do we say that COVID helped us to identify a problem that was already there? So if a person has a phone in church and they look at it instead of listening to the word, then this is showing us that they are, the problem that's already there is they're seeking their identity outside of Christ. And the phone is just giving them the opportunity to demonstrate that in the middle of a church service. Before the phone was there, it hid these things, but those things were still there. Our desire to look at things besides besides Christ is always been there. So if the phone at the same time can be a problem, and people can make it their little idol, and it starts to become something that is put in place of God. But I've been reading the book of Deuteronomy in my personal Bible study, and over and over again, the warning is that you do not don't follow the idols of the people of the land that you're going to. And so the people of Israel are outside of the Jordan River, and Moses is talking to them, and he says, "Hear, O Israel, love the Lord your God." And this is in Deuteronomy 9:6. The Lord your God is one. And then he's referencing the 10 commandments that and he's reviewing it, and he's saying, you can only have one God. And so we have a very many lots of distractions that we can follow, just like the Israelites, and those things can become anything can become our idol quickly, and technology can be that. So summary, technology exposes what's already there, but technology can also be a new God that we worship in place of in place of God. So we just, the best way to address this is to talk about it straight up. Like, what is in the way I talk about it is I use the word influence. What influences you the most? Is it the technology, or is it the Word of God? And what helps you become like the question of successful life? Somebody might say, well, the technology helps me to have a successful life. Yes, it does. If you have access to technology, your potential to do more things and make more money is good because you have this tool. But how is this different than somebody who lived during Jesus's time, who would have access to some new thing, and they could make money and get a better place in the world, and that could become their sole pursuit. Is that helpful? I think the technology comes back to what do you hunger for the most is what influences you the most. So if you feed yourself with the things that are the Lord's, you can still use the technology, but you see that technology isn't there to meet your deepest needs. I hear your question, and this is a huge problem in America.
Yeah.
So probably the way that I saw this happen was I had a couple of students who were wealthier than me, since I'm a pastor, I'm not wealthy. And they had cell phones before I got a cell phone. And this is in the early, this is like in the early 2000 time. And, but now that we have 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th graders, our middle school group, I would say approximately half of the kids in middle school in the United States have a cell phone. And those cell phones have no service issues. They don't have problems with logging in or maintaining a signal. So do we see a generation that has this technology, our youngest kids, and we say, how do we fight against this? Parents are letting them have cell phones, and they're walking around with cell phones. Why are parents doing this? Why would a parent give their kid technology? Well, they're giving their kid technology because they're trying to keep their kids safe. They're also wanting their kids to be successful in life, but they're not equipping their kids with tools how to handle the technology. One positive thing that we see with technology is in the meetings, I will say, look this up on your phone and tell me what you see. And so they'll look up a subject and they'll say what they see. And then that'll help us with, hey, when they go to their phones, this is what they do. And this is the type of thing that they're being exposed to. So let's talk about that. The other interesting thing that technology does is I've noticed that kids are taking notes, and they're also taking pictures. So if I use a PowerPoint slide and they know that they want that information, then they're raising their phones up while I'm talking, and they're taking a picture of the screen. And then I asked them, well, why are you taking a picture of the screen? And the kids will say, because I want to get candy, because if I answer the question afterward, and am I allowed to do that? And we're like, well, sure, So then they have pictures on their phone of the things that I'm talking about, and on the little TV up front where I have the pictures of the PowerPoint presentation. When I'm talking, they're taking pictures of the screen. But what's interesting is now they have those pictures in their phone, and I'll say, now during the week, why don't you review what you took pictures of during youth group, and use that to help you to focus on the Lord. But also maybe something you took a picture of, you would want to share with a friend. So you can text that picture to a friend and say, hey, I learned this at youth group this week. What do you think? So when the one student texts a picture of what they learned on the screen in youth group to another friend, then that opens up a way to talk about the Lord that is in the world that they live in, because they have phones, and this is where they live. And we can try to make the phone the enemy, or we can show them how the phone can be a friend. We can make technology the enemy, or we can show them how to use technology in ways that is beneficial. So we're not going to fight the battle that technology is evil, that phones are evil, because they're not. They, like anything that humans get, they can carve it into an idol, or they can use it to build a temple. And so that's how we have to teach about technology. There's no way to avoid it. But this is the same. If we go back hundreds of years, parents and church members would be talking about some other thing that people are making an idol. They would be talking about addiction. They would be talking about the human heart doesn't change. So the formula for addressing the idols, the things that we carve into idols instead of build temples with, this is the same, no matter where you are. So 20 years from now, you're going to be talking about the same problems, but it's going to be maybe a different thing that is the cause, that is surfacing why this problem is there. But again, the problem is already there. It's the human heart is the problem, and our sinful desires are the problem. So let's go to the heart and not be obsessed about the surface. Then on the issues like technology, let's see how we can redeem what Satan corrupts. So anything can be corrupted, and anything can be redeemed through the work of the Lord. Any other questions? It's funny, Berhanu, you're doing a good job of people dropping in and out and keeping
Well, it's I didn't do anything, but
one of my biggest concerns is helping parents. One of the things that the church needs to look at is they can have youth leaders, but the youth leaders can only do so much, and the church needs to look at their parents as the number one youth leaders, and needs to work on equipping parents for ministry. So if the church, if people in the church are upset about the number of youth leaders they have, and they're trying to, we talked about this I think back in October, about the need for more workers. Well, we already have lots of workers and their parents, and they have no choice to be youth leaders. We just have to help them to know how and what to lead. And so we have to keep focusing in on the parents, and to make sure that the focus is not about griping about what the next generation, gripe is a word that we use, it's complain. Instead of complaining about the things that are the problem in the next generation, they need to recognize that what they're complaining about is visible in their own lives, but just in a different way. So if we equip those parents to address those same hard issues, then they can identify them with their kids. How about some more questions? It's interesting that an open question time like this, I find it more difficult because I'm not the Bible answer man. The Bible is the answer, you know. But maybe I'm helping you. There we go. the Bible answer book that Berhanu just showed us on the screen. But I'm helping you to think, show you a window into my thinking. That's the best that you're getting, because these questions are putting me on the spot. And so and this is the way ministry is. You're going to have things put you on the spot. You're going to have people say, well, why isn't the earth 1 billion years old? Or why? And so you'll have a lot of questions that are going to set you off balance. But there is a way to respond to every question that you're hearing me as I'm giving some answers to these questions today. And that the response is go toward the deepest need, our heart needs, the needs that we have down here. So even if you're asking a question about faith and science, that the person ultimately is asking a question, we could get obsessed about the information that they now have access to that makes them think that the earth wasn't created by God, and they didn't have that information before, and we could control what they believed. Well, we can't control anything. People will follow their hearts to evil no matter what time, and no matter what century. And only God draws people to himself. So our calling is to be the conduit, the pipe between the God, people's hearts and God's desire to connect with their heart. So our responsibility as believers or as ministers of the gospel is to keep pointing people in the right direction. And we fail to point people in the right direction when we are obsessed with the surface things instead of the heart things.
The previous verse is that Deuteronomy 6:4 or 6:9.
Yeah, Deuteronomy chapter 6 verses 4 through 9 is the verse that talks about that we need to be generation focused. So
Israel.
yes, and this is what Moses was about ready. He knew he wasn't going to live very much longer, and Moses was giving Israel the most important thing, and that is to think about faith in a multi-generational perspective, and not just the kids. So Moses gave the children of Israel a vision beyond the immediate that the generation was going to have, which would be pursuing the idols in the land, to say how you conduct yourself doesn't just influence your kids, it influences your grandkids. So once a parent has a kid, they begin to understand that those kids are going to have children. And so when we focus on the children of our children, it gives us a broader perspective of what we're trying to accomplish in ministry. Instead of getting overwhelmed by the problems right in front of us, we want to think the long view.
Thank you.
So, Bibi.
May I add one more question, please?
Yes.
Very good. I'm thinking of a balance between the church leaders and the youth leaders or the youths. So I think it is better to balance what churches are thinking of and what the youths are thinking of, and these ways they can do more for the church, and the youths can do more about their lives, about the uses and the likes. I think it is better to balance the gaps which we are looking nowadays in the churches. And so I think that is very excellent way of.
Yes. So a balanced approach is very helpful. Yes. So Abibi, I see your mic is open and you seem to have pretty good connection. Do you have input?
It's good.
It's good. Okay.
Am I clear, please?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so I think it is better. Do you have, if you give me some suggestion, I'm very thankful about the balancing of such activities.
So when can you Berhanu, can you help me understand that the balance of activities? Can you guys just double check in Amharic to make sure I'm understanding what he means?
Okay. ማልበል ጥያቄ ስምህ እዚህ ላይ ስላልወጣ አይፎን ነው የሚለውና
ኦኬ ባለፈው ተገናኝተን ነበረ። ከበደ እባላለሁ።
ከበደ በጣም ጥሩ። ጥያቄ በወጣቶች መካከል ያለውን ጋፕ እንዴት ብሪጅ እንስራለን ነው? እስኪ እንደገና በለው ለኔ ያሰብኩት
ምንድነው ያሰብኩት መሰለ? በአሁኑ ጊዜ በወጣቶቹና በቤተክርስቲያን መሪዎች ወይም በቤተክርስቲያን መካከል ክፍተቶች ይታያሉ። የሚታዩ ክፍተቶች ደግሞ አንደኛው ወጣቱ በራሱ እንትን ነው መሄድ የሚፈልገው፣ መጽሐፍ ቅዱሳዊ የሆኑ ነገሮችን ሙሉ ወደ መከተል የሚመጣበት ሁኔታ ብዙ አይታይም። በራሱ ዓለም ውስጥ ነው መሄድ የሚፈልገውና ይሄንንም ነው በፍጹም አትመሄድ አትችሉም ማለትም አስቸጋሪ ነው። እንደገና ደግሞ ቤተክርስቲያን ነው እኛ በምንሄድበት መንገድ ብቻ ተለልቆች ደግሞ በሚሄድበት ብቻ በሚሉት መንገድ መሄድ አይቻልም የሚሉት ነገር ከመጣ በትልልቆቹና በወጣቶቹ መካከል ክፍተቶች እየሰፉ ነው የሚመጡትና እነዚህን ነገሮች በምን መልክ ነው ማመዛዘን የምንችለው ወይ ደግሞ ወደ አንድ ለማምጣት ባላንስ ማድረግ የምንችለው የሚለውን ሐሳብ ምናልባት እንደ ሰጀሽን የሚያቀርባቸው ነገሮች ካሉ በሚል ነው።
I think
አግኝተኝ እንደሆነ አላውቅም ሐሳብ
ያው እንደገባኝ በሁለቱ በወላጆችና በልጆች መካከል የሚታይ ጋፕ ልጆች
በወጣቶችና በልጆች ሳይሆን በወጣቶችና በአባቶች
ወጣቶችና
በቤተክርስቲያን
አባቶች
በቤተክርስቲያን መሪዎች
እናቶችንም ይጨምራል። አባቶች ልትለው ወላጆችን በለው
እነዛ ትልልቆቹ
አ
በቃ እኛ በምንልበት መንገድ ብቻ ሂዱ ይላሉ ወጣቶችን። ወጣቶች ደግሞ በዛ መንገድ መሄድ አይመቻቸውም እና በራሳቸው ዓለም መሄድ ይፈልጋሉ። ያ ሁኔታ ደግሞ በቤተክርስቲያን መካከል ክፍተቶችን እየፈጠረ ይመጣል። ይሄን እንዴት እናዛምደው ነው?
ማስታረቅ እንችላለን።
እንዴት እናስታርቀው?
እንደገባኝ አሁን ሀሳብ የጄኔሬሽን ጋር ትውልድ ለምሳሌ ወላጆቻችን የሚያስቡትና የሚያደርጉት ነገር የራሳቸው ዘዴ ያላቸው የራሳቸው መንገድ አላቸው። አዲሱ ትውልድ ደግሞ በቴክኖሎጂ ኢንፍሉዌንስ በትምህርት ቤት በሚዲያ የራሱ ሌላ ተጽዕኖ አለበትና ይሄንን ጋፕ ለማጥበብ ምን እናደርግ ነው?
ትክክል አግኝተኸኛል።
Pastor Greg, I think the question is more of generational gap. There is a difference between the new generation and the old generation, the parent generation and the youth generation. There is a gap. The youth following the technology, maybe social medias and all that influence from it could be a school influence, philosophy, whatever. There is a tension between the two. So is there any way we can lay down a bridge between these two generations? The parents can understand the children can understand the parents.
So in the United States, in 1984, there was a group of Christians who began to do generational analysis to understand this question. And they began to look at and identify different generations as they emerged. In the United States, we do the secular people do generational studies, the difference in between one generation and the next, in order to best advertise and sell products. So since the 1980s, there is almost like 40 years in the United States, there is a lot of research into the difference in between one generation and the next. And in the secular world, it's for the purpose of how do we sell the most things to the next generation? How do we get rich off of the next generation and sell them things that they don't need? But the Christian people who study the differences in between generations began to say, well, wait, we need to, as Christians, we need to study the differences and the value differences in between one generation and the next. And so the problem is in the books that are published. So right now, the books that are written on the next generation are called we have the millennial generation, and then the books that are being published right now are about Gen Z. And Gen Z is the generation born Gen Z is roughly the oldest of, or the youngest of them are in high school. The problem with the generational studies is there is no book published yet about kids who are in elementary school and in middle school, because we don't know what their values or their belief systems are. But as I've studied the differences in between generations, so I'm answering your question by addressing the broader question, and that is that there are always differences in between generations, and generations are usually today, because of technology, the difference in a generation from one generation to the next is less than 15 years. So my college students are not totally understanding. It's not just parents not understanding their kids. My college students are seeing a big difference in between the way they think and the kids who are 12 years old and how they think. So we have to be students of our culture and students of the next generation. And the best way to bridge the gap in between one generation and the next is to listen and to ask questions and to over and over again ask them what makes you most excited, what are you listening to, what so you're just listening with an open mind. What kind of music are you listening to? What is your favorite song? What movie do you like the best and why? When you go to the internet, what do you like to watch the most? Or on social media, what are your friends talking about the most? So the only way to meet a generation where they are is to listen and hear where they are. So I have been doing youth ministry, working with teens specifically as a pastor for almost 30 years. That means that my wife was telling me that some of the students that I had at first are, one of them was turning 40 years old this week. And he was one of my 7th graders when I started ministry. And and he has children now. And the difference in between a 40-year-old, he's a parent. And he has kids. This is a constant thing. So we listen to what is influencing the next generation, and then we bridge the gap and we find ways to say, how does the gospel speak to that? One thing to note is that most generations do have 2 things that they do. One, the generation reflects or mirrors what is in the previous generation. So they will mirror the sin of the previous generation, and they will mirror what they admire in the previous generation. So if you're trying to figure out one generation to the next, you say, okay, they're going to make bigger whatever happened in the previous generation. They're going to mirror it. But they're also going to do something else, and that is that they're going to rebel. So they mirror the sin, they make bigger the sins of their parents, they make bigger the things that they admire from their parents. But they're also going to choose to rebel against some things that the older generation does. The things that the older, and they rebel against what does not make sense. All right. So if what the older generation believes doesn't make sense, then they'll say, no, that's dumb, that's stupid, I'm not going to do that. So the bridge is that you're not, or the problem is that we're not making sense to the next generation. And those, and then rebellion happens when what we say does not make sense. Why does it not make sense? It doesn't make sense because we haven't learned a new way to communicate, a way to communicate the truth that we believe in a way that they understand. Why are we unable to communicate the truth that we believe in a way that they understand? Is because we're not a student of the next generation. We're not listening to the things that influence them the most. And as a result, we're not listening, and all we're doing is we're saying it the way that we've always said it, and it's not making sense. Because we're not using illustrations that are relevant to where they are in their current situation. So Step one, listen and be a student of the next generation. Step two, remember that what you say may not make sense, and you need to learn how to say it. The same thing, the same truth. The word of God doesn't change, but we need to learn to say it in new ways so that they can understand, and say it in ways that are illustrated with things that they believe, or the things that their values, because you've listened to them. And then also say, we need to look at ourselves and say, what sin are we doing that they're amplifying? So when we look at the next generation and we're all upset about what they're doing, well, what is the heart problem that we have that they are making bigger? But also, what do they admire that they're making bigger, and what are they rebelling against? In our culture, in the United States, we're in a post-Christian culture. So if you want to rebel, the best way to rebel is to be a Christian, because it's going the opposite direction of the majority of the culture. And so we can say something like, hey, don't you think that some of the things that adults believe don't make sense? How is it that that you can say that truth is relative, meaning it's whatever you believe is okay? How does that make sense? So then shouldn't truth have some sort of basis for truth? And so it's easier to talk to, in the United States, to teens about the things that don't make sense that adults believe. Another thing that doesn't make sense is pluralism, meaning every religion is truth. Well, how can it be? If every religion is true, then that means no religion is substantive. So why should I believe in anything? And so when we look at what doesn't make sense that the older generation believes, then tap into their desire to rebel, and show them how to rebel against it. That's helpful. So those are some basics of how I'm looking at generational change. So right now, I understand that these books about Gen Z are not about teen ministry. This is about adult ministry. Because if a kid is between the 18 and 22, then that's your adult ministry. That's not your children's ministry or ministry to teens. Do you find that way of thinking helpful?
Yes. Yes.
ጥሩ ጥያቄ ነው በእውነት አስፍተን ልናየው የሚገባ ነው። Pastor Gray, have you ever come up with this book, The Truth?
Yeah. So Josh McDowell wrote that book in the 1990s, I believe. And he was identifying the issue that I was just talking about as being an adult problem, or actually he was saying this is a next generation problem. But when the people who were struggling with the things that he was talking about in that book, those are the parents today. And so the difference in between right and wrong, and that there has to be a definite right and a definite wrong, and it can't be that everybody is right, and truth cannot be relative. So we see an entire older generation who lives by this value. So the younger generation now we can, like I say, tap into the rebellion by saying, what is it that adults believe that doesn't make sense? And then how does the Bible make sense in comparison to these false beliefs that the adults have followed? How does the Bible bring, why is the Bible true? So it's interesting that the next generation can get excited about rebelling against the older generation, because that's what they naturally do. So why don't we take that rebellion and use it for the glory of God, rather than letting Satan take that rebellion and use it for his glory?
How do you do that?
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, it's not a question. When I was in Germany, when I was in Germany, I think you have echoes.
Yes, it's on your end, I think.
Andun computer when Anton Bello mute go.
That's what the mechanical code. No. Nobody is here with me.
Mulugeta አንደኛውን አጥፋው አንደኛውን mute አድርገው please.
No? የኔ ግን ይሄን ልስጥ እሱን ዝጋና ይሄን ልስጥ ና እዛ አካባቢ ይሄ ጥሩ ይሰማል በደንብ ይሰማል
So did Berhanu, did you hear him say something there that I missed?
I heard when he was in Germany.
Right.
That's all I heard.
Let me finish now. The internet is cutting down.
Okay.
I saw a good number of people after the conference when we went down for coffee and tea. I saw a good number of people who were with me in the church were smoking. And I was not shocked.
He's continuing from previous one. When he was in Germany, he saw something. Mulugeta, would you mind go back to the story?
Yeah, so I understand him to say that after the conference, he saw a number of people smoking.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mulugeta, you've locked up on our screen.
Yeah.
Which is difficult because when you see people that are Christ followers and they are doing things that we don't agree with, it's a struggle. So yeah, Mulugeta, I see you're back there. You mentioned that you saw people smoking, Christians smoking after a Christian conference in Germany.
Well, I'm not quite sure whether all those speaking were Christians or not, but it was in the church compound, and I have a good number of them, maybe 15, 20 people. In between 300 people, 250 people were smoking. I was one of the speaker and one African brother was speaking. So the break time, we went downstairs for coffee. And not only smoking, I saw them drinking beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really a shock for me to see them. That was in the Bible school compound. It's well-known Bible school compound.
Yes. So, you know, when I was, the difference in between the culture in the Washington, D.C. area that I live in, the culture in Ohio, a different state in the United States, is significantly different. So teens thought it was cool to smoke because their parents smoked and it was just part of the culture. Where I live now, I rarely see teens smoking because it's not cool to smoke and it's not part of the culture here for people to smoke. But again, like in Ohio, how did I choose to minister in an environment? Well, what I did was I took all of the teens who were smokers and I put them in charge of smoking, which sounds weird, but I said, you know, there are a lot of parents are dropping off their kids and they don't want their kids to start smoking. So can you help me out because you know all of the smokers, can you ask them to have everybody smoke across the street together and then come to church? So what I said is, I love you, I accept you, but the smoking is a problem, but I'm after your heart first. So all smokers are allowed to come to youth group. I just don't want you smoking outside the church door. So that was an interesting way to deal with the problem, and the kids enjoyed that because I wasn't focused on the smoking. I was focused on their heart. Now, why German culture has allowed drinking and smoking, you know, that's a Christian liberty issue, and I guess they're not seeing it as the area that they want to focus on their faith. But it's tough. How do you handle what some people say is a sin and other people say is not a sin? It comes down to what we call Christian liberty, and what is helpful for the gospel and what is not helpful for the gospel is our biggest thing that we focus on. What Mulugeta, any thoughts there on more thoughts on your experience?
Well, I didn't ask any question because we didn't have time, and then I didn't see the people after that conference. I know I'm not quite sure about smoking, but I know drinking is not a problem for most German Christians
Right,
and French Christians. I
right,
know the Americans have different culture, just like Ethiopians in most cases.
right.
But in Europe, I can see that they drink.
Right. And the drinking drinking alcohol, they have determined, you know, that they do when children will have wine. And so more people, I don't know what the rate of alcoholism in the United States is compared to Europe. That would be an interesting study. You know, so yeah, so interesting topic for sure. We're running out of time today. Mulugeta mentioned that we've been on for a little bit here, and I have a good idea of, you know, things that we could talk about in the future, but I think probably the best thing that is going to be helpful to me is if questions are sent my direction in advance. But also that I can also be more prepared with something specific to discuss. We've been meeting on the second Saturday of the month, but in January this is going to be a problem for me next month because I am going to be taking a class, and I will be out of town, and I will be doing a lot of studying. So we might have to meet at a different time in the future, but we will communicate that with Mulugeta, and Mulugeta, you can tell people when we will meet again.
It's good.
Sound good?
Yes, it's very good.
I think we can make a decision today. Are you available in February?
Yes, I'll be available the second Saturday in February. When the problem is January is really difficult. I'm taking classes at a seminary working on my doctorate degree, and that it's very demanding. And I have multiple classes that I have to take in January that makes it difficult. So waiting until February 11th would work for me. I think, wait, not February. Yeah, February 11th.
Ligeta schedule Taragoyan, February 11th.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's good to send circular email for all of us with the video.
Yes, we will send that again.
Yeah. Just including the video because many people are up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Those people who were hearing the video, they really appreciate it and they want to listen. There is a big interest. So it's good to send the video and then the dates with it. So I can easily distribute for those who are interested.
Yeah, so that I mentioned at the beginning, it looked like over 60 people had logged on and viewed the last video. So we will send the link to this one as well. Good. I guess Berhanu, if you will close us in prayer, and if you'll pray in Amharic, that would be good.
Great. Ashi.
God bless you, both of you.
እግዚአብሔር አምላካችን ሆይ እናመሰግናለን። አንተ አልተለወጥክም። በዘመናት መካከል ስራህን እየሰራህ በትውልድ መካከል ማንነትህን እያሳየህ ስላለ ተመስገን። ዛሬ ስለሰማነው ቃል ስለተነሱ ጥያቄዎች እግዚአብሔር ሆይ
አሜን።
አንተ በእነዚህ ነገሮች ተቸግረህ አቃተኝ ብለህ አታውቅም። በዘመናት ሁሉ መልስ አለ። በዘመን ሁሉ እንደሚነሳ አስቸጋሪ ለምንለው ነገር ሁሉ መልስ አለ። እግዚአብሔር ላንተ አሁንም አንተ ታምነህ ይህንን የጀመርነውን ጉዞ በታማኝነት በአንተ ላይ በመደገፍ በአንተነት ላይ በመታመን እንድንቀጥል እንድትረዳን ለምንሃለሁ። ስብሰባ በተገኙት ወንድሞችና እህቶቻችን እጅግ አድርጌ አመሰግናለሁ። አሁንም ጸጋህን አብዛላቸው። በፊት ይህን ጦርነት የመንፈሳዊ ጦርነት ሲዋጉ ጌታ ሆይ ቅዱስ መንፈስ ያግዛቸው ዘንድ ጉልበት ይሰጣቸው ዘንድ እነሱም ደግሞ እግዚአብሔር ሆይ ተነስተን እንሰራለን ብለው በአንተ እንዲታመኑ እንድትረዳቸው ለምንሃለሁ። ለፓስተር ክሬግ እናመሰግናለን። ጌታ ሆይ ባርከው፣ ጊዜውን ወስዶ እንዲያካፍለን ስለረዳኸው ተመስገን። አሁንም ድረስ ኤጁኬሽን የሚቀጥለውን ወር ደግሞ ጌታ ሆይ በሚኖረው ጥናትና ትምህርት አንተ ከእሱ ጋር እንድትረዳው ለበለጠ አገልግሎት እንድታስጋቸው ለምንሃለሁ። ሁሉን በሁሉ በጌታ በኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ
አሜን። Amen.
Well, that's good.
Thank you very much, Pastor Greg. This is great. We'll pray for you and wish all the best for you in your study. And if you are not able to communicate, happy Christmas and New Year for you all.
Yes. Thank you. Good.
Our Christmas is in January, not yet.
Oh, okay.
January 7th.
Yeah, January 7th. Thank you.
Okay. So Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not New Year, not New Year. Our New Year is in September.
September.
Yeah, September 11 is our New Year.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, take care and good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Rick. Love to all the family.
Yep. all the family is doing well.
Kapade, thank you. Our brother, thank you. Ayantu, na Russia, you, Ligeta.
Nimaje, Nimaje.
Nimajenich?
Ajay is with
Ah,
Okay. Nimajena, Ayantu.
እና ሀብቴነህ ና ደግሞ አንተ ና
በጣም እናመሰግናለን።
ና አንተ ምን ሰላም በል
አንተማ ታይታል።
ቻው በል ቻው በል
ወንድም ደጀኔ
Dejene, እንደምን
ተስፍሽ ሰላም ነው ብርዬ?
ደህና ነኝ፣ እግዚአብሔር ይመስገን። በጣም ደስ ይላል። እንኳን
እንደምን አለ? ደህና ነህ? ንጉሱ ስሙ ይባረክ። እናንተ ደህና ናችሁ?
በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል።
ብርዬ ተባረክ።
Okay.
እግዚአብሔር ይባርካችሁ።
God bless you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
See you in February.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Free.
Yes?
ባጭሩ ላውራ በኋላ
እሺ ፕሊዝ። እኔ ስጠብቅህ ነበር ያሳለፍኩት፣ አልወቅስህም ብዬ ነው። በሰው ፊት ደውልልኝ ብለኝ።
እሺ አይ ማታ ቆይ እነግርሃለሁ።
እሺ እሺ። Thank you.
Bye bye Greg.
Pastor
Bye.
Greg, thank you so much.
Okay,
We'll see you in February.
good.
But
Take
I'll see
care.
you this weekend.
Bye-bye.